All right, welcome to episode number 43 of the Sundowners Golf Club podcast. I am your host, Giovanni, and I've got my co-host over here, Matt. Matt, how are you doing? How was the weekend?
Good, man. I was traveling for part of it. I was in the other Washington. Well, you know what's funny is you asked me where I was, and I didn't quite realize like all the delineations of that area. I think I was staying in Virginia, but then driving to an office like 5 minutes away, not in Virginia. I don't know. But yeah, did some work stuff over there, visited DC for the first time for one of the afternoons, and came back Saturday afternoon and just kind of hung out with the fam. So it's pretty good.
That is good. Yeah. I went to DC last year, and we had talked about the old Ebbett Grill.
Yep.
Maybe I just wanted to give them a shout out. I know you didn't get to spend a ton of time there when you went, but that's one of my favorite restaurants that I've ever been to is the old Ebbett Grill over. It's right by the White House in DC proper.
Yep. Yeah. So you told me about Ebbett Grill, and you know, when your buddy says, "Hey man, this place is right up your alley, you gotta go." So I tooled on over there. And funny enough, I had set up in my GPS. I wanted to drive past the White House and then go to Ebbett Grill because I've never obviously seen the White House in person before. So, and I'm going and I'm looking at my maps and I'm just following it. Because I don't know the area, I'm just doing what it's telling me to, but I'm not paying attention enough to what I'm doing. And I realize when I'm taking my third right turn that I'm driving in a circle. And I'm like, what is happening? And I look at it and I realize that, I put two and two together is what happened is when I visited the Capitol before I headed over to Ebbett Grill, that I'm pretty sure the president was in the Capitol, and I got word later that I guess he was headed to Mar-a-Lago that afternoon. And so everything was blocked off. And so I couldn't get to the White House. Like my only vision of the White House, like through a bunch of trees and they have there's a bunch of construction happening too. So I think that main road that goes right in front of the White House you can't access it. Like I think you can walk nearer it, but you can't just drive by. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I got a little peek, but then, I went over to this restaurant and sat down, and it was pretty busy. It was hopping. Everybody in there was dressed nice and talking shop, having a good time. I think 80% of the tables had oysters or some sort of seafood on the table, and the budget for gin in this establishment is healthy. It's a healthy budget of gin. So I was a little excited. I was like, I'm gonna get me a mess of oysters. I'm gonna have myself a martini. And went up to the bar to order it, and there's this older gentleman sitting there, and I noticed that he has a travel humidor, and I'm not afraid to talk to strangers. So I just asked him, I was like, "Hey man, what's in the box?" And he opens it up and we start talking cigars. He's like, "Well, I'm actually checking out here. I'm going to go down to this place called, I think it's called Shelley's Back Room." And, don't get mad if I'm wrong, but I think he said it was one of the only legit cigar lounges in DC proper. And I was like, "Would it be weird if I just came with you? I haven't ordered anything yet." He's like, "No, that'd be great. Come on down, come with me." It's like, all right. So I just put the menu away and followed this random dude after meeting him 30 seconds prior down to Shelley's Back Room. And we sat there for a good hour and a half and talked about our, my short military career, his 21-year military career. He retired after, I think he made it to lieutenant colonel, and he was looking at his next set of orders where they were going to send him, and he had a feeling he was going to have to go to Iraq. And so he's like, I'm gonna punch out. I'm out of here. So he got out, retired. He and his wife both retired lieutenant colonels, and he got to work at the Pentagon. He was a pretty cool dude, very interesting guy. But yeah, it was a good time. So not a lot of experience at the Ebbet, but Shelly's back room was pretty cool too.
Well, I'll have to check it out. We'll have to go there together sometime.
Oh, I love it.
One time I was in DC in 2019, 18 or 19, and I was there for a job interview, and I had just kind of started wandering. This is what I do when I travel. Especially this somewhere I've never been, I just take an Uber into town and just waltz around. And I had found myself. I'm terrible at describing this because I've yet to find it. I've yet to find it again. I've been back 2 or 3 times since then. I can't find it, but it was this hole in the wall little pub. It was kind of like between 2 like condo front doors. It was kind of disguised, kind of like a speakeasy, but it wasn't. When you get in there, it's not intended to be a speakeasy. You could
Right.
tell. But anyhow, I went in there, and everybody in there's got suits on, like a lot of people do in DC. And I sat at the bar and had some lunch and a beer, and I start chatting with the guys around me, and most of them were attorneys, and they said that particular bar started out with what's like the big newspaper publisher in DC.
Washington Post.
It might have been
The
the
Post?
Washington Post. Maybe it was, yeah, maybe the Post. But anyway, I guess their original Washington Post building was just around the corner, and it was all of the journalists would after work go over and have beer at this little joint, and it's just been a little hole in the wall ever since. Um, anyhow, it was such a cool place, and I've yet to find it again. I've tried to ask locals about it as I give my terrible description of it, but it'd be fun to try
Yeah.
to find that place.
That that seems like the place I would want to go. Is that right there?
Well, I still think, we got to go have a nice meal at the Old Ebbitt Grill, and then we can go find that place.
All right, deal.
That's
I'm
what we
in.
got to do.
I'm sold.
So I was also out of town for the weekend. We went to Park City, Utah for Desert Dogs games. We went and played the Park City Pioneers.
There you go.
I'd never been to Park City. I've been to Salt Lake City, but we ended up driving there, so it took us about 9 hours to get there on Thursday morning. And I don't know, you're going to a ski town in early March. I think or mid March. We expected it to be some snow, I guess. I don't know. Anytime we go to the other
Right.
ski towns, regardless of the time of year, it's usually pretty snowy. We get there and
Yeah.
it was like 78 degrees, and there was hardly any snow anywhere. There was a couple. I don't even know what you call them. I'm not a skier. Runs, slopes. I don't know.
Yeah.
You could look over and there's like one run. There's like all the chairlifts going up, and there's just one run that you can go down. So people are out there skiing in 78-degree weather, going down one short little run. But Park City was cool. It's an extremely, from a real estate standpoint, it's an extremely high cost of living area. We were looking at realtor.com. There was a home for $60 million. I was narrowing my search to see how many homes above $1 million, how many homes over 8 million, how many homes over 20 million. And I think the 10 million mark, there was like 268 homes over $10 million in Park City. It's crazy. But really cool place. We went down to a couple bars there. We went to the No Name Saloon. We went to the Spur. I can't remember the name of this distillery we went to. Garrett really loved it, and he went there a few times. But really, really cool downtown. It's Garrett was describing it as kind of like a miniature Broadway in Nashville. They had a few bars with like a rooftop bar. It was definitely more quiet. I don't know. The place kind of quiets down by like 11 o'clock, it seems. But really fun time. We played the Park City Pioneers. We did beat them twice. They were the first time we won this year.
I got to ask though. I told you, I talked to you before the game. I said, I need to see you on the plus side in the box score. Did we do it?
Well, our line did not have any goals. Our line was our role was, high and off the glass, battle in the corners. We were not scoring any goals this weekend. We were close. No, I think I went -1 each game. It was 6-5 the first game, 3-2 the second game.
Okay.
It was kind of an interesting experience, though. We do these trips and we go and play, and it's pretty good hockey. It's in some ways a little out of my league at this point as I'm getting older, but
Right.
it's full contact, physical hockey, and it always feels like there's a bit of a gentleman's rule in play.
Right.
It's not like we're out there trying to kill each other. But it's good physical hockey. This game, the first shift, one of the guys, goes to shoot the puck and skates by their goalie and kind of clips the goalie a little bit. Quite frankly, it didn't look too vicious or anything, but one of the guys on their team immediately just jumps one of our players. Not the player that hit the goalie. Gloves off, and he's just throwing haymakers at him. So we're one shift in, and one of our guys already got jumped. He's kind of got a bloody nose and a little, gash on his eye. A shift later, another guy, his line mate, they both played D1 hockey at UConn. He gets hit. It's a clear, obvious boarding, like hit from behind, goes kind of head, shoulder first into the boards. He was out for the weekend after that, potential torn labrum.
Oh my God.
And then it just got ugly for the rest of the game. It was just a lot of, guys just trying to instigate fights. It was bizarre. Not usually what we're looking for on these kinds of trips. Now game two was much better overall. Thanks. It wasn't quite as chippy as a whole, but they brought in an extra player for this game. He appeared to be maybe in his 40s, and he was a thick boy. And he had stitches on his nose going into the game. And this guy played two shifts the whole game. He had 2 penalties, and one of the penalties was him following our guy around the ice, just hacking him with his stick, completely away from the play. And then,
who are these goons? Where were they from?
Park City. So then this guy, he ends up jumping one of our players. It was bizarre. Overall, though, I think by the time we left, we kind of chatted about it. We were like, considering how cool Park City is as a destination and how chippy the hockey was, like, would we come back? And I think most people said, yeah. And maybe just, the guys running these things, Garrett's in charge of the Desert Dogs. So, maybe a little message saying, hey, just so you know, we're not, we like physical hockey, but we're not here to, I don't know, get hurt or see anything malicious happen. But we just got back last night, drove back early Sunday morning, and back on the hog.
Well, there you have it, man. We had exciting, but not quite the same excitement, huh? I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't get any fights.
Now, I was able to watch quite a bit of golf. We were pretty much sitting there with multicast on, watching golf and March Madness basketball. First, I want to acknowledge the loss in my life, which was Gonzaga losing to Texas.
I did watch
in the second round. That was a heartbreaker. We were watching it in the locker room, and then there was like 3 minutes left, and it was a close game. So we ended up taking Joel's phone onto the bench and had it playing on the ice while we were playing the first half of the first period. That was a bummer that they lost. But yeah, like I said, we had some fun. We'd go out to the bars and get home at 11, and then we would just hang out with all these guys that we see 3 times a year until 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So
right.
So we were sucking our thumbs watching sports all day long before the games. So anyhow, let's on this golf podcast, let's talk a little bit about golf. We have Matthew Fitzpatrick winning on the PGA Tour at the Valspar Championship. Pretty exciting win for him, especially coming off last week, losing to Cam Young by a stroke on the 18th hole. He is a guy that appears to be finding form leading into major season. What do you have from the Valspar, Matt?
Well, I'll be honest, due to my trip to the East Coast and the work requirements, I didn't get to watch as much golf as I wanted. I did get to kind of partially watch the last few holes on Sunday, but by the time I was able to sit down and just watch it, I felt like Matt had it. I guess it was close there, the last few holes, but I I didn't get to experience that tournament live in action, but having watched Matt last week, I wasn't really that shocked to see him come in here and get it done. Especially, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo tournaments, but the Valspar's roster of players is a little bit different than the Players Championship, obviously. So I think Matt came in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and got it done, which is cool. Of the Brits, I think Matt Fitzpatrick is pretty low on the Matt has an issue with him golfers. I don't really take issue with Mr. Fitzpatrick.
All right. Well, hey, it is kind of funny because Matt Fitzpatrick, I think, tends to get looked at as, I don't know, in that kind of upper echelon of golfers, probably in large part to him winning the U.S. Open back in 2022. But it is interesting that this is only his third PGA Tour win. Well, second PGA Tour win, including, and then tack on a U.S. Open there. He does have, I think, 15 wins worldwide, on DP World Tour and stuff. But, I mean, he's been dialed in. He went 68, 69, 68, 68 this week, which is about as consistent as you can get, and obviously make your way to a victory. Just speaking of Matt Fitzpatrick, I think because he's in that upper echelon of guys, at least, optically, I don't pay a lot of attention to where he finishes. He's one of those guys that if he's not winning or getting top 5, then, maybe it's an off week. But just generally speaking, he's had a pretty good year. First tournament, the American Express. Well, first off, he's played 7 events and made 7 cuts, so that's at least a good sign. T63 in his first event, that was also his worst finish. He went solo 9th at the Waste Management Open. T14, T24, T41, second place, first place. So he's got 3 top 10s, including a win, 4 top 20s. So really pretty good, and he's kind of hitting his peak right now. So you got to think he's making some people's lists for for major season at the Masters.
Did you say Masters?
I did say the Masters. Don't worry, we'll talk more about the Masters. That was probably going to consume most of our airwaves for the next few weeks. I do want to quickly, maybe I'll go through the top 10 really quick, and then I want to point out a couple notables on how they finish. But we had Fitzpatrick in first, David Lipsky in solo second. Third, Jordan Smith. To be honest, didn't see a lot of what he was doing. He did shoot a 66 in the final round, so he, similar to Xander, who got T4, shot a 65. They kind of skyrocketed up for a kind of a non-competitive top 5 finish. Marco Penge, T4. Sungjae Im, who shot a 74. He was all over the place on Sunday, so not a lot going on for him. That was kind of sad to see. A few T7s. We had Emiliano Grillo, Steven Jaeger, Patrick Cantlay, and S.H. Kim. So that's your top 10. And then just to look at some notables, like I mentioned, Xander, not that a T4 should ever be disappointing, but, he's been a little hit or miss this year. I think he's finally coming off of that injury, so I think he's fully recovered. But some signs of life for him, shooting a 65 in the final round to move up 21 spots is pretty cool to see, especially with major season coming up. A name that kind of caught my eye, and while I'm talking about it, I'm going to look it up. But Patrick Cantlay, I feel like he's been, I'm just going to say it without confirming it, he's been kind of non-existent this year. So I don't know. I mean, it seemed like when it was always him and Xander were always get talked about together. They're buddies, very similar game, both very good. And then once Xander won his major, it seemed like he just did laps on Cantlay.
Right.
So I guess we'll quickly go through his season. So we had a T13 to start, cut, T14, T37, cut, T32, and then T7 here. So he's got 1 top 10 and 3 top 20s and 2 missed cuts and 8 starts, 7 starts. So I don't know. Take that for what you will, but it seems like by his standards, a guy that's won 8, 9, 10 times on the PGA Tour, you got to think this is considered a pretty slow start for him. But happy to see that he is finishing top 10.
Have we talked about Xander on is he one of the boys? Like I feel he's one of the top golfers, but is he part of the we're pulling for him club, or is he on the outside? I have a feeling. I get the feeling that he's a divisive character. I don't know.
Man, I don't know. He is. I don't want to say the word boring because I think that gets used too much when we're talking about being fans of pro golfers. But
Right.
he's just kind of a run of the mill, keep his head down and just play golf. In fact, I'd say just over the last couple of years, probably since that major run he went on, he's kind of showed a little bit more personality. He seems kind of like a goofball.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he's like as non-confrontational as they come when it comes to some of these top players. So I don't know. For me personally, it's a guy that I'm not disappointed to see win, but in the same vein, I'm usually not rooting for him to win.
Right. Yeah, I think between the two of us, I'm obviously a little bit more into the YouTube golf, and the times he's been on there, I have to admit it's made me not be as much of a fan of his. I think I was more of a fan of his before I started seeing him in YouTube golf because he comes across a little abrasive, I think, like trying to be hilarious. It just kind of comes across like kind of like a jerk, if I'm being honest. It's just like, I don't know if I'd want to play golf with that guy because I think that's really what it comes down to for me is what I want to play with that guy, on a Saturday afternoon.
So when they did that event, what was it? It was Tommy Fleetwood, Shane Lowry, Xander, and Keegan. What was that Golf Channel event they did earlier in the year?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I remember. I remember what you're talking about.
He had some zingers. I think you kind of see a little bit more of his personality with stuff like that and the TGL. I'm not going to go out and say he's hilarious or like this crazy personality, but
Right.
it's definitely changed my stance on him as a fan. He used to just be this guy that really didn't give you anything. He just seems so locked into his game at every moment that you're like, okay, this guy's probably not very fun to golf with. Yeah, he showed a little spark. Now I'm going to go through a few more notables. Jordan Spieth, T11. Of course, there's graphics all over the place of Jordan Spieth having the most birdies on the week. He had 16 birdies compared to Fitzpatrick's. Jordan had 16 birdies, while Matt Fitzpatrick had 15. But of course, if anybody's been watching Jordan Spieth for 10 plus years like I have, we know that the birdie count isn't usually the metric we look at on Jordan's success. It's usually the bogey, double bogey, triple bogey avoidance.
Did you? I don't remember the hole, but I remember how it went down. It was a par 5. Jordan's tee shot into the woods, right? Classic Jordan to the right. Hits a shot back into the fairway. I think he was standing on a root or his club hit a root, puts it out on the fairway. So you're like, okay, he's back. And the announcer goes, I mean, aren't we dialed in here with this setup to be like a Spiethian birdie here? He hits a shot of the fairway into the green. His foot slips or he's standing on something and it doesn't look great. And he has, I think, a 26-foot birdie putt and drains it for birdie. So into the woods, off a root, slips on his third shot, and then makes the birdie. And it's just like everybody's just kind of like, yeah, that's Jordan Spieth right there. That's what he does. Is he just gets on the green and makes putts, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I think was it this weekend or was this a couple weekends ago?
I swore it was this weekend.
I mean, I'm sure it happens probably, at least once every weekend anyway. Yeah, he's known for, taking the non-direct route to the hole. Let's see. And I'll just highlight a couple more names before we dive deeper. But just interestingly enough, Gary Woodland, T14, coming off of brain surgery last year. So he's kind of got a little bit of signs of life there. Brooks Koepka, T18, -4 for the week. And on 16 on Saturday and Sunday, he double bogeyed 16 both days. So if he were to just find a way to, I don't know, par one of those days or par that hole on both of those days, he would have been in the top 10. I got to say, Brooks looks pretty good. He's had a pretty good, comeback to the PGA Tour. So it's just kind of fun to see him. Does he still have that, that kind of dog in him that we've talked about before, where he doesn't care as much about these tournaments. He just wants to win the majors, and he's got some pretty good finishes leading into major season. Another name I just want to highlight for less due to his results on the leaderboard and more from some storylines we've been seeing, but Adrian Dumont de Chassard. He ended up finishing T26. He shot a 74, 3 over. He was playing with Matt Fitzpatrick, and Matt Fitzpatrick was pretty transparent on how he felt about Adrian's slow play. There were numerous times when Fitzpatrick's kind of like hovering around the green while his playing partner's still getting ready to hit his approach shot. It just one of those things you kind of hate to see. I don't think this is like we need to panic and talk about slow play a ton, but it is a little refreshing, I guess, when you get a guy that's just outright says it. Yeah, it was frustrating. I'm trying to win a tournament here, and this guy's dragging balls.
Yeah,
another name.
I give Matt credit for that. I think you should. I think we should see that more often, to be honest, because I think you and I have talked about this before. And when Matt did that, it kind of made me think like maybe that's what we need is in the moment, the players themselves call attention to the situation. Be like, hey, are you seeing this? The guy's taking 5 minutes to hit his shot. I mean, this is absurd. And I don't want to get in the other pieces. I don't want to get penalized, right? Like if you and I are playing together and you're just on the struggle bus, like one, I feel for you, but at the same time, I'm trying to win a tournament. And so I can't let you get me off my game because you're just, sucking wind. And so maybe that's the answer to this is the players themselves speak up and just call attention to it and be like, hey, like we got to figure this out because this isn't okay. And then I know that he was given a warning, but I don't think he was penalized, but they did officially say, hey, this is your warning.
Yep. They were put on the clock. Especially with slow play. It's maybe like the lesser version of being accused of cheating in golf, right? Like it's like a label that you just want to avoid at all costs. And it seems like in golf media, when somebody gets, a one particular clip of them playing really slowly, that just becomes their label. One guy that comes to mind is Patrick Cantlay, who, by the way, they did the old, let's cut to Patrick Cantlay as he addresses the ball. He waggles 1,000 times, and then they cut away to another player. And then they come back and they still had time to catch his golf shot. That's kind of the Patrick Cantlay special. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think you're right. If they just start like bringing it up, and you don't even have to like accuse anybody of anything, right? There's no accusatory going on when, hey, you were put on the clock. Tell us about that, and then just saying it. Hey, it wasn't me. You guys can go watch. Now let's. I want to go on the other side of the leaderboard here. Let's look at some notable missed cuts. I think I've been a little light on Ben Griffin because I have a lot of faith in Ben Griffin, but he misses another cut. And so now I'm looking at his start for the season. So he's played 8 events. He's made 5 out of 8 cuts. He only has 2 top 25s in his 5 cuts made. And here's the, it's literally gotten worse every time. T19 to start, T24, T28, T37, T41, and then we go cut. So I'm just going to go out and say it that I'm a little worried about Ben Griffin. It's considering we've got 2.5 weeks until Masters week. It's time for him to find something because he had a phenomenal year last year and kind of quickly put himself on that upper tier of PGA Tour players, and he's kind of finding himself in a bit of a slump. So we'll see what we can get out of Ben Griffin moving forward.
Well, you know who stays ahead of Ben Griffin in missed cuts in 2026? He's on the watch list.
Who's
JJ Spawn.
Oh boy.
JJ
Spawn
missed
a cut this week. There he is.
He had a good week last week at the Players with a top 25, barely top 24. But it's sandwiched between 3 cuts. Cut, cut. T24 at the Players, and then another miscut.
Yeah.
And the other 2 times he's T40 and T45. So it's like, I don't know, man. He got so much credit for his putter And this season so far, he's been atrocious. Are you looking? I assume you're not looking at his data golf right now.
No, I don't have data golf pulled up. No.
So I want you to guess what his strokes gained putting was this week. And I'm telling you it's bad in hopes for you to guess.
I'm going to guess he was -3 strokes gained.
You're close. -2.62 strokes on the green alone. Folks, that's not great. That's so bad. That's so bad.
Now, tell me if I'm wrong in looking at it this way, but so if he's losing 2.6 strokes on the field, that's essentially saying per round he's giving up 2.6 strokes to the average player in the field on the green. So you could think of it like over 2 rounds, he essentially shot 5 strokes worse than the person with equal stats but an average putting stat. Is that a true statement? He is making the cut if he putts average. He's making the cut by a stroke.
He probably would have, I would say, just briefly looking at this, I would say if he was the average, he probably would have made, I think he probably would have made most, maybe not all, maybe missed one cut still, but he probably would have made all the cuts outside of one.
It's tough, it's one of those things. He's definitely not a guy I root against, but no. It's, you brought up the question a couple months ago, who are these guys that, they win a major and they kind of get a certain expectation assigned to them, and how do they respond to that? And Wyndham Clark was a guy that came to mind for me, and he was the first guy on your mind. So we'll see what happens with him. So the thing that kind of catapulted him onto the stage was when he won right before the was it the Valero Texas Open, the event that's played right before the Masters. And so he got into the Masters with a win the week before, and I think that was his first Masters. And ever since then, he kind of was riding the wave for a few years. So we'll see. We'll see what happens to him. All right, other names on this miscut list, just for the fun of it, Dan Brown. Everybody knows Dan Brown from the British Open when he was smoking cigarettes on the way down the 18th hole. He did miss the cut, unfortunately. I saw a few clips of him, though, out, lighting cigarettes. Luke Clanton has had a very, very, very bad start to the year. I'm trying to ride this guy. It's just not working out. He shot 78, 75 to get second to last on the field. Not too far ahead of him, Max Homa. Max Homa's been very, very hit or miss, on a large scale, but also like per round. He's had some wild scorecards, but he's a guy I definitely root for. So we're hoping he can turn something around. Sahith has had a good year. He played terribly this week, had 2 rounds over par, missed the cut by 6. And then I had another name floating around here. Oh, Victor Hovland. He's another guy that's, been seems like he's coming back to form and, kind of hit the skids this week. Anybody else on here that you want to highlight?
We've mentioned him a couple times over the last couple of weeks. Austin Smotherman. I kind of pointed out when we first mentioned him that so far his career is top 25 or miscut. So just stay true to that. Austin Smotherman missed the cut. Did not get a top 25 this week. He has a really nice swing. I didn't know about him until a couple weeks ago. I'm going to be honest. And if he's playing well, he's fun to watch. But outside of that, a guy that I always, because I'm a huge Spieth guy, every time I see this guy's name, I want to know where he's at on the list, is Danny Willett. Danny Willett was in the field. He missed the cut. At least in my lifetime, and he's still a Masters champ, but he's probably my least favorite Masters champ, like in a winning of a tournament sense, not as a person or anything like that. But as a huge Spieth guy, I don't know. He just was in the right place at the right time, I guess. And he hasn't really done much since then. I think all of his other wins are on the DP. Yeah, he has no other PGA Tour wins outside of the Masters. So for whatever reason, he's a name that I always seek on the leaderboard.
What's interesting about that, because I'm with you. You know, I remember watching that Masters and just feeling gutted for Spieth because he was at the time and still is my favorite golfer. And Danny Willett comes up, and nobody's heard of Danny Willett, right? I hadn't heard of Danny Willett, and it felt like a very disappointing Masters winner. And I don't know that that's really changed, you know, because the way he won, it took Jordan Spieth hitting, what, 2 balls in the water? Anyway, he was, just kind of a fun fact, I guess, he was number 12 in the OWGR at that time, and he moved up to 9 after that. So while it feels like in memory, like Danny Willett just kind of found it on 1 week, he was you know, a much higher rated golfer than I recall. But I think I agree with you. You know, Danny Willett was just, it just kind of felt like a nothing burger, probably because like Jordan Spieth's the kind of character that when he does that, like the entire golf world feels sad for him. You know, it's not like a guy that some people might be rooting against in that instance, right? Like if Patrick Reed did that and Danny Willett won, we'd probably be celebrating Danny Willett.
Yeah.
But yeah. One, I guess as I'm scrolling back up, I do want to talk a little bit about the course generally, but another name, Jacob Bridgman. Jacob Bridgman is playing phenomenal golf. Obviously, he won the Genesis earlier this year, and we kind of talked about the success that he's had this year, and he's got a pretty low floor, or a pretty high floor right now, leading into the major season. So
he has zero this season. He has 0 finishes outside of top 18. T4, T13, T18, T8, a win at the Genesis, T18, T5, T14. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean that I'd have to see, you know, who's doing better, right, in that stretch. I mean, he is number 1 in the FedEx standings right now, but he might be, you know, one of the highest performing golfers in terms of results so far this year. Maybe him and Cam Young. Obviously, Scotty's probably in there somewhere, but yeah, just as a name that most people aren't going to be looking for. At least they, but the start of the year they weren't looking for him. You know, as we're considering picking major winners moving forward. Now, you had mentioned, you know, the field at the Valspar is not always the most enticing in terms of, you know, prioritizing putting it on the TV. And while I agree with you that this particular iteration at Innisbrook, the Copperhead course, it was like browned out. You know, I know that we're getting ready to be going to Texas here soon on the PGA Tour, and for a second I was like, did they move this to Texas? Because it looked like all those Texas courses where it's kind of browned out, usually baked out. It was a fun tournament to watch for that reason. You know, there was a par 3, I can't remember which one. We were watching the featured holes, and these guys were just struggling with this front right pin placement. Nobody could get it on the front part of the screen because it was just too firm and fast. And so it seemed like guys would try to, you know, run one up the front, and then they'd miss. It would roll back down into the bunker, or they'd carry it, you know, onto the green. And next thing you know, they have a diabolical, like 30-footer coming down. So it's just at these, what we'll call, I guess, run-of-the-mill tournaments, you don't really see that very often. So it was kind of nice to see it. And I don't know, anytime that the winning scores, you know, floating around single digits, it's usually a sign of a good course setup.
I agree. I like that.
So shout out to Matt Fitzpatrick for getting a win. I'm excited to see where he goes from here. I know we've probably talked about every time that he comes up on this podcast, but I still just cannot wrap my little pea brain around the fact that he does cross-handed chipping. It's just crazy. It's like, it reminds me a little bit. I had the same feeling of like when Spieth kind of goes in and out of his looking at the hole on the short putts.
Yeah.
And every time he does it, I'm like, I know this is his thing, but surely this isn't going to work forever. So it's like a don't look away, or I don't know. It's like watching a train crash. So when he does it, I'm like, no way this still works for him. Like, and sure enough, you know, he's a wonderful player around the greens. So shout out to Matt Fitzpatrick and his cross-handed chipping and his Skechers.
That's the worst part of him. It's the Skechers.
Now, on the other tour, Live Golf. This is one I really didn't watch a lot of. I don't tend to watch a ton of it, not for any particular reason, but I only have enough bandwidth to watch one golf tournament each weekend. But
Yeah.
yours truly, Bryson DeChambeau, wins again 2 weeks in a row, two playoffs in a row. He beat John Rahm by birdieing number 18, par 5, to lock in another win. He had a pretty emotional interview on the green afterwards. Not to dive into the tournament too much because I didn't watch it, but this is, I get it, it's live. Some people might, value these wins a little differently, but back-to-back wins, 2.5 weeks away from the Masters from a guy that's probably 2 or 3 on the odds charts. What do you think about DeChambeau?
You know where I stand with DeChambeau. I think he's a top 5 player in the world. I think I've said it over and over and over again. I wish he was on the PGA Tour because I think it would be Scotty, Bryson, 1 and 2 likely. When he's playing well, I mean, he's so good. I mean, he hits it a mile long. He's sneaky diabolical with a wedge around the green. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit from, I don't know, casuals maybe. I think golf sickos know that he's a sicko with the wedges. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I would love to see him come in and be competitive at the Masters. Like it gets me excited. Like that's what I want to see. And I think that's what's exciting is I think there's a lot of these guys that we like watching that, man, I don't want to set the bar too high, but I have like this feeling in my pit of my stomach that I think we have a good one coming this year. I think Brooks playing on the PGA Tour this season. I know he's been there obviously, but and Brooks and I think we're gonna have a good one this year. I really do. I think we might have a close battle, and I want it. And I want Bryson in the mix desperately.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of fun as we go into major season. Scotty, he hasn't been bad. What has he won? Has he won twice already this year? So obviously he's still Scotty, but he's not the same Scotty that we see this time of year over the last couple of years. And then Rory, he's kind of mentioned a little bit of back injury. You got Bryson, John Rahm, Ludwig's been kind of spotty, but it's kind of. I think this is the first time that in a while that we haven't had like any true clear favorite. Obviously, the betting DraftKings and stuff will have their favorites, but right now we could probably name 5 or 6 people that are are equally likely to win this thing, at least in our minds.
Right.
So it makes it exciting. It makes it really exciting. Now, speaking of live golf, okay, so Bryson's buzzing. Obviously, it seems like he's going to be a character in the Masters, but I do want to bring up an Instagram post that I saw, and this was by Luke Elvey. And to be honest, I haven't even hashed out my own thoughts. I wanted to save it for here. But he puts on here, and it's a picture of the 18th hole at South Africa where they're playing the live event. And it looks a lot like Tiger in 2018 winning the Tour Championship. I'm not going to say it's fully on that level, but there is massive crowds around this final 18th green, and they're coming in from all over the place, which is super, super cool, right? So Luke Elvey says, in reply to this picture, he says, the biggest mistake the PGA Tour made was ignoring markets from which a number of their stars came from. Taking and rarely giving back to those countries is what forced Live's arrival. Don't hate that it's becoming popular globally. Hate the tour leadership that ignored its potential. Now, it seems like there's a lot to unpack in this three-sentence tweet. But do you have any first thoughts on this?
Well, I don't know. I think I've been pretty consistent with this thought. Just because I'm not a live golf hardo doesn't mean I can't give credit where credit is due. And I think that's the mistake that people make is they take this, they draw a line in the sand and they're like, no, nothing to do with this other thing can I like, right? And I think that that's kind of sad. I don't know. It kind of bums me out because then you have things like this where it's a really cool experience. And it's a moment that has a lot of energy to it. And if you would have just allowed yourself to appreciate it for what it is, it's just another opportunity to have some fun with golf. And so, yeah, I get the point he's making is I think too many people just drew a line in the sand and just refuse to enjoy something, which is like, I don't know. It sucks, but you see people do it nowadays all the time. It's pretty common. They're like, if I'm on team blue, I can't be on team red or vice versa. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
I think it's what it is.
Now, I guess to me it felt like a little knee jerky, right? I mean, this is the first event Liv has played in South Africa, and when I'm looking at this picture, and clearly there's a massive fan interest in this event. The same is not said everywhere else they go, right? There's plenty of Liv events that they're having a hard time, gathering fans like this. We talked a lot about Adelaide when they played in Australia, and it looks a lot like this every time they go to Adelaide. So I don't even know that, like, when I see this and hear about this, I don't at all think about the PGA Tour, and like why Liv is here. And I don't even know that Liv is here because the PGA Tour is, quote, taking and rarely giving back to those countries, forcing Liv's hand. I guess not sure that that's why Liv is here, right? But so I don't know. It's just to me, it just feels a little like tinfoil hatty to me. When I think what we really ought to be doing is just celebrating the fact that this many people are here to cheer on probably the best playoff that we've had in a while, John Rahm and DeChambeau. So I don't know. I just it just kind of felt like a stinky little tweet here. Like, don't hate that it's becoming popular globally. I don't know. Like, or do people hate that it's becoming popular? The people that hate Liv just hate Liv.
No, I mean, I'm gonna defend my point here. Is when you hear people talk against Liv, how often do you hear them go, it's just not for me? They don't. They bring all this other stuff into it, and they hate on Liv, and they do all this stuff, and they make it bigger than it needs to be. And it's like, God, like, why? Just either it's a product for you or it's not a product for you. You don't need to make it more than that. And that's what's keeping them from enjoying good moments. It's like, guys, you sold yourself to hate this moment before we knew it was going to be Bryson and John Rahm in a playoff. When any other situation, we'd have been like, guys, do you remember that weekend Bryson and John were in a playoff and Bryson had to play the muddiest mud ball the planet has ever seen? Like, he was basically playing from an oil slick. Like, do you remember that moment? Oh man, that's so crazy. But no, because it's Live Golf, most of the golf population just refuses to appreciate it for what it is.
Yep.
So I get what he's saying, and maybe is he being a little bit more dramatic than he needs to? Maybe, but I don't think he's wrong. I mean, look at our, the people that we talk to and hang out with just here locally. Like, most of them aren't neutral to Live. Most of them are like, forget
one
that
or the
tour.
other. I shouldn't say surprised, but I've met a handful of people or some of my buddies that when Brooks comes on the TV, they're like, F that guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait, why? Well, yeah, ever since he went to Live, I just don't like him. And in fact, it happened over the weekend with Joel. He's talking about him, and I was like, well, I like rooting for Brooks. He's just on my list of guys I like, but he's also pretty high on the list of guys I don't think I want to have a beer with. I don't even think I'd have fun hanging out with him. He doesn't seem like a super nice guy, but he sure is fun to watch. And so, like, him going to Live, it was kind of like, for some reason, that just makes sense to me. Like, that was a logical decision. But like him coming back, it's like something I celebrated. You and I celebrated.
It's delicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brown butter.
Sorry, I'm shampooing some It's really sweet. Oh my.
No, and here's the point I'll make is with Brooks specifically. I think he's a great example. Is just like you said, people are signed off of Brooks because he went to live. But then when Brooks came back to the PGA Tour and essentially said, "Hey, you guys were right. This is the tour that means more to me, like as a golfer, as a purist. This is the tour that just means more to me. The wins are going to be something. I feel more home here than I did on live, and I was wrong." And did people welcome him back with open arms? No. What? Like, why? So if your argument is live shouldn't exist, we don't want live, we don't like live, it's bad for golf. So then when you see the top golfers that went to live come back, you should be like, thanks for coming back. You're proving my point. Thanks for coming back. I'm on your side now. But they're not. And that just, it's like, well, you guys aren't, you don't actually believe the stuff you're saying.
Yep. Now, I do want to, I'm just excited for the Masters. Okay. They play Masters commercials left and right on CBS, watching March Madness. And every time I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. It's like better than Christmas. So like I mentioned last time, we are going to have probably 2 designated Masters preview podcasts. One, we'll have to iron this out, but one, we'd like to just do a kind of a course deep dive with Jared, and then we'll do kind of a formal preview pod. But here and now, what I want to do is I want to pick at least 3 categories and kind of make our selections here. The 3 categories will be, who are your, let's say, 3 names of guys that you're going to pick to win the tournament. And then the next one's going to be, who's your long shot. And we can kind of define that however you want, somebody that's out of form, somebody that's, out of the top 50, who knows. But who would be your kind of dark horse pick? And then the last one will be who would be the most fun winner. And I'm picturing, I'll use Phil Mickelson as an example. It would be so fun to watch him win, not because of any feelings I have for or against Phil, but it just would be so fun to watch the golf world unfold and unravel with a Phil Mickelson win at Augusta. So, Matt, I'm going to have you kick us off. Give me 3 plus or minus names that you think have the best chances of winning the Masters.
So, I'm going to go Jon Rahm. I'm going to go Brooks Koepka. And I'm going to go, who else did I want to say here?
Did you want to say Bryson?
I want to say Bryson. Yeah, those will be, well, I don't know if Bryson necessarily makes the cut of likely winners. I can make legit arguments for Brooks and Rahm.
So you're saying I'm going to push back a little bit. One, I'm surprised that you even have Brooks as a more likely to win than DeChambeau, but you haven't even mentioned Scotty. So all 3 of these guys in your mind have a greater chance of winning than Scotty.
Here's, what's funny is I'm gonna make an argument and then I'm gonna go against it, and so I have to admit some of this is just a gut feeling, right? So statistically, right now, there's a stat out there, and I'll just read the stat real quick. And this is kind of what I'm basing some of these on. 11 of the last 13 Masters winners were 1.7 plus strokes gained tee to green in the 3 months leading to the Masters. As we stand right now, we have 11 golfers that fit that qualification. It's Colin Morikawa, Siwoo Kim, Jon Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rory, Scheffler, Cam Young, Ludwig, Brooks, Straka, and Goddard. Now, where and then there's kind of like a secondary piece to that. The best putters in that group right now statistically were Scotty, Cam Young, and who did I say the third? Cam Young. So statistically, Scotty should be one of the most likely guys on my list. But watching him play, I don't feel like he has the it factor right now to win a Masters. And maybe I'm wrong. I'll be the first guy to jump on board to cheer through the last hole. But if I'm betting my money, I don't know if I'm going to put it on Scotty. I like Rahm and I like Brooks. And even though he's not on this list, so statistically I'd be going against it. I would pick Bryson just because, I mean, he's putting really well right now. And I think he's savvy. So those are my three that I'd put my money on to bet. The guy that I am going to be just rooting for because I like watching him is Chris Gotterup. I love watching him. We all know this. I'm a Gotterup guy. And he fits the mold. He's on the list, right? I mean, he's on the list. So I want him to perform. And, you mentioned Phil being kind of your like, I don't think he will, but it would be so cool to watch it happen. That's Jordan Spieth for me. I feel like we're starting to see some glimpses of OG Spieth, right? We're still seeing some of the train wreck holes, classic train wreck Spieth. I think he had a 4-putt earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure we saw a 4-putt from Jordan this year. But that one would be great. I would be stoked to see Spieth win this year.
Okay. Now, are you saying who's your long shot? Is that Gotterup?
I would say the longest shot is Spieth.
Okay.
I think Gotterup it has a better chance to win than Spieth does.
I think I agree with that. The reason why I ask, because I don't know that I view Gotterup firmly as a long shot. I mean, I don't think he's in that top, tier when we talk about these things. But all right, I like it. So I'm going to give you my names. I think I would be a crazy person to not include Scotty on this list. So I've got Scotty, I've got Bryson, and for my third, I've got Cam Young. Mainly because obviously he just won the players, but it seemed like at some point he was able to dial in his putting, which was always kind of his like Achilles heel. Yep. And when he's buzzing, he's kind of mesmerizing watching him as a golf fan. Just it's his swing, it's the power he has, it's his like laissez-faire demeanor. He's just so casual and locked in. So those are my three. I do have some random notables that I guess just are probably in the same vein, but I'm not willing to kind of stick my neck out.
Right.
I like Akshay Bhatia going into this. It's kind of considered a lefty friendly course. Augusta National is, and this is probably the best lefty that we have playing in our game right now. Rory McIlroy, I think a lot of the intangibles are carrying most of the weight on that one. He's coming off the biggest win of his entire career. He's going to be the returning champion. So I'm hoping that just that alone can kind of inspire him to dig deep. Then other names on here, Fitzpatrick coming off a win, and we just talked about what a good season he's had so far. Xander, he's already won 2 of the 4 majors, so he's got a little bit extra motivation here. Ludwig, Justin Rose. I don't know if you remember. I tend to forget, but he was in a playoff with Rory last year. And then Jon Rahm. Now for my fun pick. So I do want to just briefly touch on if Phil Mickelson won this thing. So he is in the field. Could you imagine Phil Mickelson winning? I mean, I think we already can imagine it because when he won at Kiowa, when he was 50, the world went nuts for Phil Mickelson. So you just multiply that by 10, I think, if Phil wins. Another name that is in my maybe frisky zone that I also think would be fun to watch the backlash, and that'd be Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed has,
Got another
I think
top 10. Get another top 10 this week.
that's right. And I think we all forget that he finished, I think, solo third last year when he holed out. I think it was on 17 and ended up, maybe it was on 18. I can't remember, but solo third last year. And he's kind of on I want to go back to the PGA Tour march right now. So it would just be funny to see the world kind of just like look at each other and like wonder how to react if he won. And then my long shot, I'm going to throw my long shot out there. We already talked about him, Jacob Bridgman. It's a borderline long shot because of the season he's been having, but I think he's plus 9,000 odds to win. Jacob Bridgman is. So from a betting standpoint, I'd call that long odds, but he's.
I think the reason he's the longest of odds, despite how well he's playing, is he's never played the Masters, right? So.
And he's also just been kind of an under the radar golfer, and so how is he going to perform on a major stage, especially at the Masters? Maybe I'd like him better somewhere that's not the Masters, specifically because it's his first Masters, and everybody that plays in the Masters always talks about like it's one of the courses that truly experience is a tangible benefit, or advantage playing the Masters, but. I'm excited. He's a guy I'll be watching just to see, how he ends up performing considering his past results on the tour this year.
Just real quick on his major experience. Last year was his first major year that he played in majors, 2025 PGA and US Open, and he missed the cut in both. Okay. So he, as well as he's playing, I get my pinky up once we start talking about major tournaments. And the less experience you have, especially at Augusta, it's hard to bet on you. It just is, we know, we know it too, right? When we see a guy that's never played the course, right? When Zalatoris came out of nowhere and was he tied for the lead or solo second his first year for a while? Like he was heavy in the mix. Everybody's like, huh? What? How? Right? So it just doesn't really happen at that course. It just doesn't. So that'd be cool to watch. I'm down. I have nothing against Jacob Bridgman.
Yeah, so we'll see. But all right, we are coming up on my kiddo's bedtime. So we'll go ahead and cut it there. Maybe next time we can talk about Rory's menu. I know that we won't be able to squeeze that in 10 minutes. We can't talk about that in less than 10 minutes. So we'll save that for next week. And then, stay tuned for some more Masters preview. I guess just before we log off, I'm going to quickly look and see what we have coming our way on the PGA Tour. We've got the Houston Open at Memorial Park next week, and then the Valero Texas Open at the Oaks Course, both in Texas. These are fun events for one purpose. I shouldn't say one purpose only, but this is where the guys are trying to fight for the spot to get into the Masters. So it's always fun to see, who can pull these off and earn their way into the field at this year's Masters. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk next week.
Get her done, buddy.